Namaste, beautiful. Welcome to Headstand practice. Today we're going to be covering Sirsasana A and B. So traditional headstand with the fingers interlaced behind the head and tripod headstand. In my opinion, and probably in the opinion of most people, these are the easiest two headstands to achieve and a great gateway into inversions. Inversions are super fun. And they're also a really nice way to help to move the energy up the chakras toward our crown as we are literally upside down and the blood is flowing in that direction. That being said, as we know, it is far from the only way to move the energy up the chakras. So if you have not mastered headstand yet, that of course does not mean that you cannot move your kundalini, your prana, up towards your crown. Yeah. So let's keep that in mind to help keep the ego in check. Always keeping the ego in check, particularly when working toward new skills, right? We really want to be careful with our bodies, with our minds, as we're working toward new skills, particularly when we are going upside down. So, that being said, there are a couple of different ways to get into headstand, and one of those ways is kicking up, but I'm not going to teach you that way, and I recommend to my students to try to avoid kicking up generally. Maybe if you can have one foot up and you're kind of slowly bringing the other, okay, but if you overkick, you can really hurt your neck. But if you're pressing, if you're moving in a more controlled way, then you are a lot less likely to get hurt. Yeah? All right. So that all being said, speaking of the neck, as far as warm-up goes, pretty much warming up the neck, maybe a little bit of the shoulders is all you really need to do to prepare for headstand practicing. So, if you want to do some neck circles, do whatever you need to do to warm your neck up. Maybe, pull to the side, pull forward, backward. Warm up in what way feels good for you. Shoulders, you can circle out your shoulders. You can do a little puppy pose. You can just kind of stretch them out this way. And just take a couple minutes to prepare the neck and shoulders, and then you should be ready to go ahead into headstand practice. So you can either be doing this alone, just any time of day that you feel like practicing headstand, or a lot of times when we're sequencing, then we will place a headstand or any kind of inversion toward the end of the practice. So if you're doing some other practice, some other class, and then you get to the end and you're like, oh, I want to practice my headstand now, during that time that maybe we say something like, oh, you can now take any pose that you want to practice, or maybe there is a headstand in it, but you need a little bit extra practice, then you can come here. Yeah. All right. So let's start with A. So traditional fingers interlace. We're going to place them behind the head. So a nice way to determine the distance that we want for our elbows to be is we grab a hold of our opposite elbows with our hands, and then when we place them down onto the mat, and then we have our elbows down, so now we have our distance, and then we release the hands, and then we interlace the fingers. I generally unlace the pinkies and place one on top of the other instead, so that then I am not putting pressure onto my pinky when I then place my hands down onto the mat. You can choose that way, or you can keep them all interlaced. I just find it more comfortable that way and a little bit safer that way as well. Safety is really important, particularly when we are first learning these things. Yeah? Okay, so once we have our hand placement, then we're just going to go ahead and we're going to place our head into the hands. If you have a ponytail or something, I kind of like to cup my ponytail a little bit, but if you don't, then you can just keep your thumbs together. And then we're going to tuck the toes and we're going to push up into kind of like a downward dog, dolphin kind of position with our head on the floor. Yeah? All right. So now this first method is going to require a bit of ab strength, and also I find it to be the safest, and also I recommend working on your ab strength if it is difficult to press up to headstand this way, rather than trying to just get the headstand, again, keeping the ego in check. Yeah? All right, so now what we're gonna do, if you can, you can see I'm already coming up onto my toes. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna come up onto the toes until our back is pretty straight, right? Until the butt is about in line with our head. And then at that point, we're gonna begin to use the abs, so squeeze the abs to lift the feet off of the floor. And then we're gonna keep lifting our feet up until we feel like we are pretty straight. And I never know if I'm exactly straight, to be honest. So just kind of try to feel it out to get your alignment here. So a nice way to do that is to try to feel like you are pointing your toes all the way up toward the ceiling or the sky, wherever you are. And so then we're kind of squeezing everything here, right? So we're nice and tight here as we're also relaxed, right? So it's kind of this dichotomy of allowing for everything to be stacked while still being mindful and being engaged. Yeah? All right, so let's go ahead and come down. So let's come down the same way that we came in, please. All right, so I strongly recommend, as I said, to work toward being able to press up to headstand in that way. And a way that we can work toward that in my opinion is relatively safe, is by first tucking the legs. Yeah. So now if you were able to do that, then amazing. You can move on to the tripod portion, which I personally think is maybe a little bit easier even to get into, but maybe that's because it was the first version that I learned when I was a kid. Anyway, I digress. Okay, so let's go ahead, and if it was a struggle to get the feet up toward the ceiling by pressing, again, work on the core strength. And if you would really, really like to get that nice straight headstand now, then what we can do is we can go back into the position. So taking the elbows, interlacing the fingers, unlace the pinkies if we want to, place the hands down, place the head. And now let's go back to our kind of downward dog type position. We're coming onto the toes again. And then instead of lifting with straight legs, we can go ahead and we can bring the toes toward the butt. And so to help do this, I recommend putting such that your thighs are kind of touching your abdomen here or your ribs. So kind of touching your core with the thighs, I think then makes it easier to then lift the toes. And so then we have our tuck here. So now we're going to kind of want to straighten it a little bit to make sure that our butt is in a nice line with our head. And then once we have this, then we can go ahead and straighten the feet up toward the ceiling. Yeah? All right. And then again, we can come out the same way that we came in if we want. So if we want to tuck down, and then if we want, we can tuck all the way down to the floor. Yeah? Beautiful. So now we're going to go to tripod and basically do the exact same thing. So as far as pressing, but our hands are going to be positioned differently. So now we have, let's put our head down first. And so we have our head down first. And then we take our hands and we place them so that we have kind of like a right angle between in our arms. Yeah? And so we can kind of see our hands right from where our head is, and we have this nice right angle. And then we're going to go back into our downward dog, dolphin type position here. And so now we have our hands to use as well as the head to help us to press up. Yeah? So again, we're doing the same thing that we want to first kind of have our butt in a nice line with our head, and then we're lifting, and you can use the hands here both for balance and also to take a little bit of pressure off of the abs. Yeah? And then again, we can find our straight line. We're pointing our toes up toward the ceiling. We're engaged, but we're also allowing for our vertebrae to be stacked. We're keeping our shoulders away from the ears. Oh, I think I forgot to say that before. We're also doing that in all of our headstand positions. Keeping our shoulders away from the ears. Important. And then we can go ahead and come back down. Nice and slowly and controlled. Again, I really can't stress enough the importance of control, and intention, and just really doing this both because it's fun, because we want to move the energy up the chakras, and not because our ego is telling us, oh, I just really want to be able to do a headstand. Yeah? If that is the case, then work on it. If you're not there yet, work on your abs. Yeah? Please don't injure yourself. Don't hurt your neck. Okay? Now let's go back into the tripod. And so from here, we can actually go up a little bit more easily than the other way, because we can use the tripod of the elbows to place our knees onto and then go up into the headstand. So we can find our tripod again. So nice right angle, our head is down, our hands are about shoulder width distance. And so then what we can do, we can place the knees onto the elbows here. So kind of like a crow. You could actually, if you want, you can go from crow and then go down into headstand, but we'll cover that in a different class, a different day. And now from here, let's lift the toes up toward the butt until the knees come off of the elbows. Find our tuck here, bring the knees together. Make sure that our butt is in line with our head, and then go ahead and straighten the feet, pointing the toes, keeping the shoulders away from the ears, engaged but stacked. And let's come down. Allow the knees to find the forearms or the elbows if we want to. And there we go. Amazing. All right, so I am now going to teach a couple of classes on a little bit more advanced versions. They'll probably be up in a couple of days if you were watching this the first day. If you're watching this a little bit later, then maybe I already have the links here. So anyway, have fun always, and also please be safe. Thank you for being here with me, for allowing me to guide you with so much love. Namaste.